HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Why is Heritage Radio Network important to you?
HRN is very nostalgic to go into because it's really the only place that you have this really warm, homey experience to watch people get together and talk about the things that really make a difference.
It's really fun when I ask guests, do you want to be on Heritage? And they're like, Roberta's? Yes, 100%.
I believe that we all are really trying to bring people together.
All right.
I think
Hello.
getting more
Lisa
people
Held,
excited about good, local, well-crafted food and away from
DC.
big ag
and you're
and
listening to the Farm
tasteless
Report,
commodity
a Heritage Radio
food
Network
is
show
so important.
About the people,
it's kind of an honor to be sitting there with somebody
in
in a space where so many other people have sat
today.
Join HRN's vibrant community of thoughtful
guest,
eaters.
I wanted
Become a member
to
today.
first of all
Go to
say this is the last show of 2019. So we will be taking a break for a few weeks, and we'll be back on the air the week of January 13th. So in the meantime, I hope you all enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you in 2020. I also wanted to quickly bring up the fact that I saw a film last night, Dark Waters, which is a true story of a lawyer who uncovers illegal dumping of chemicals near a farm in West Virginia. And I've never done this before. I've never brought up a movie on the Farm Report, but it kind of blew my mind. And it's not about farming per se, but it is about one of the biggest agricultural chemical companies, DowDuPont, which actually earlier this year they split off their agriculture divisions. It's now called Corteva, but it's all part of the same system. These big chemical companies that make pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and the movie is about these chemicals, PFOA, PFAS. It's going to be an ongoing issue. It's a really disturbing movie, but it's really, really worth seeing. So I just wanted to put that out there for anyone who's interested in the food system and the companies that control a lot of the farm system. It's definitely worth going to see. Okay, so enough about chemicals. My guest today is Chris D'Amico. He's the creator of Farmed, a platform that connects chefs to local farms in and around Atlanta, Georgia. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So you are based in Atlanta, is that right?
Yes. Currently, Metro Atlanta is our focus.
Got it. And what's your background? Are you a chef? Like, how did Farmed come to be?
I wish I was. Yeah, I was in the restaurant industry, running and operating restaurants here in Metro Atlanta. Just trying to source local food is really hard.
Right.
Our customers want local food. The trend in restaurant is local food. National Restaurant Association this year is their number one stat. Consumers would choose an establishment that sources locally over one that doesn't. And so, as you really start to look at this, you're trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, I'm in a city like Metro Atlanta. We have an abundance of agriculture within 3 hours of us, but I have no access to it, and I can't get to it in any scalable way. And so I started talking to friends of mine, some business partners that have been in the agriculture business on the farming side for, decades, family generational farms, and, found the farmers were frustrated, as much as I was. So, when you've got a supply and demand that want to get to each other and somehow there's a problem, right? Why are we not being able to communicate and work together to both buy that local food and then on the farmer side be able to sell it, which is going to be higher margin for them, branding for them, all the benefits that farmers get from representing their own brands versus going through wholesalers. So that's really how it started. And, this platform was the solution, a marketplace that manages sales and logistics for farmers to be able to do that.
Right. When did it actually launch?
So we're in our 23rd month.
Okay.
So early 2018.
Got it. So, and when you say, you wanted to source local food, but you couldn't get to it, what were some of the barriers that were standing in your way? Like, why couldn't you get to it?
Well, kind of twofold. I think the first thing is, the local food ecosystem already exists. It's been around for thousands of years, as far as I can tell. It's not something new. Mm-hmm. Most countries still source the food that's closest to them and work their way out. Well, here in the U.S., it's kind of backwards. Our average food is traveling over 1,200 miles to get to us.
Right.
And so these local routes really didn't exist. So for us, it was really a logistics problem that needed to be solved. And Farmed is a zero warehouse local food platform. And what we mean by that is, we don't believe that farm to table can exist if it's coming from a warehouse.
Okay.
We think farm to table should be represented for what it is, which is food coming directly from a farm or a farmer's market in some cases. So typically chefs, who do want to source local food, are either working with farmers independently, which is not really scalable, is unreliable. And then on the farm side, farms that are working with restaurants specifically directly, end up spending all their time chasing money and collecting checks and doing deliveries, and then no time left to actually do the farming. So that's the problem that we set out to solve.
Right. So if there's no warehouse, what does the actual supply chain look like? Like, how does the food get from farm to restaurant?
So we pick it up every morning at the farms and we deliver it right to the restaurants. So every day, we're picking up from a different number of farms and we're dropping in a different number of customers. And, the farm is the warehouse.
Right.
I think is the key. And so, if you want the freshest, fastest, safest food, buy it direct from a farm and have it delivered, within hours of either, being processed or, even being harvested.
Right. So a lot of what you do is trucking, really, right?
Yeah, well, logistics is a big piece of the platform. That's the big barrier. Big warehouses and trucks that you see that dominate, predominantly the majority of the food system. That's what it's for. It's for high volume. Mm-hmm. Local food doesn't do well in high volume situations where, I've got to go through brokers and wholesalers to try to get my product to market. But at the same time, I don't want to sell you 2 18-wheelers full of food. I don't have that type of capacity.
Right.
So I'm kind of cut out of that system, right? And it's a very contract-based system.
Right.
Big contracts. And so the spot market, the cash market for farmers doesn't exist anymore. But that is how it's been done for centuries, right?
Yeah.
Farmers would show up in the city center and they would sell their goods to, and let the market dictate, pricing and what have you. So it's really bringing the cash marketplace back to, where it was originally, and being able to do that in a scalable and, repeatable way is what we're focused on.
Right. So how many farmers are you working with at this point?
We've got about 85 farmers.
Okay.
All are going to be within about 3 hours of Metro Atlanta currently.
And how are you recruiting them? Like, how did that process work, especially when you were first getting up and running?
We started. We're pretty ingrained in the restaurant community here in Atlanta, and so talking to other restaurant owners and chefs, our chef community, we started with the farms that they were already working with. Who found great value in, I don't want to be in the delivery business and don't want to be in the accounting business and chasing money. So that's how it started. And then slowly but surely, through referrals, farms, talking to another farmer in our area and saying, hey, have you heard about Farmed? And it just kind of, went from there. But in most cases, I just got off the phone with a local farm up in Charlotte, chicken poultry farm, and really want to be able to sell in the Atlanta market. They've got some accounts, but they don't have representation here. They don't have a last mile logistics solution. They can get to Atlanta, but that's but then doing that final mile delivery is the barrier. So
right.
When we talk to farmers, again, it's pretty easy value proposition for them. You maintain by selling direct to retail versus wholesale, you're going to earn more money. And we don't sell food at farmers do. We're farmer reps, so we're just there to make that connection and help build that relationship, and then coordinate the sales and logistics in the background to make that scalable and reliable.
Right. Well, but in a way, though, you are sort of the intermediary, right, between the farmer and the restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but at the same time, we're not buying the food and reselling it.
Right.
Farmers put their product on our market, and if it sells, they get their rate, and then we take a flat rate for the logistics, sales, and a farm fee that's still, putting them in a price competitive position in the market.
Right. Oh, so they list whatever they have available, and can restaurants see directly? Is it an app or like an online?
Mm-hmm.
So can restaurants see directly what's available and just order it like right on the app?
Correct.
Okay. So so you're sort of facilitating a more direct relationship, and then are funding it all by just taking a fee or a cut of the sales.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're assets over, or access over assets. In other words, so we're a, asset light, really, versus a capital intensive asset heavy model that you see traditionally, in the food system today. But leveraging technology to be able to streamline these relationships and getting the food from point A to point B is really the key to, I think, unlocking what local has to offer, which is pretty abundant. And that's where the market's moving. People want more transparency in the food system, not less.
Right.
Somebody just sent me an article. There's 3, brand new E. coli outbreaks that they're trying to track today. This is just going to continue. Mm-hmm. And, not knowing where that food's coming from makes it really hard for people to trust the food that they're putting in their bodies.
Right.
And so that is a global, not just a trend in here in the U.S., but that is the number one global trend, is transparency in the food supply system. And so to solve that, building a direct food supply chain alleviates, that major problem of knowing where the food's coming from.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting that more people haven't done this in different places. I mean, the only other company that I know of that really has done it in a big way is Farms to Tables in New York, in the Hudson Valley, and a lot of restaurants use them. I mean, when you were like doing research, are there models like this that exist around the country? It's just strange that more people wouldn't take this on and develop these systems locally.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a marketplace first, which is really hard. Marketplaces are really hard. We're also managing and taking on the logistics, which is really hard. So
it's a difficult task.
What's that?
It's a difficult business model, so maybe that's why a lot of people don't do
Correct.
it. Right? Yeah.
That's exactly correct. And I would say that, everybody that you've seen, this model in some form or fashion, but typically, again, the logistics is where they get hung up, right? They don't understand the logistics side, and they're relying on, a warehouse hub and spoke model, which, doesn't work for local food. It just doesn't fit into that model from a price point. And so being able to create a model that is, asset light and using resources that are already on the ground working and utilizing them more efficiently, is the formula that we've chosen. And there's a couple companies that we've, I'd like to say, kind of modeled, ourselves off of it through our research that are in other countries that are doing this and scaling very fast because they're using, this type of logistical model. So, and I believe that, you'll start to see more companies tackle the bigger problem of logistics and understand it so that, that this can, really take off. But, this is one of the fastest growing segments in both agriculture and food service and retail grocery. You're not walking into your grocery store seeing a whole section of local food. Why? You're not going into every restaurant seeing a list of all the farmers they're working with. Why?
Right.
We should, and that can happen, and it is happening, and will continue to, I think, accelerate as more companies like Farmed, are established and prove the model works.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, Chris, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back after a quick break with more with Chris D'Amico from Farmed.
You listen to Heritage Radio Network because, let's face it, you have really good taste. You care about where your food comes from, who made it, and its impact on the planet. Whether you're looking for an inspiring interview with your favorite celebrity chef, the latest on Dave Arnold's Spinzall, or if you want to get down and dirty with some agricultural policy, we've got you covered. 10 years in and 13,000 episodes later, HRN continues to be the go-to media outlet for thoughtful eaters, like you. And we never could have done it without the support of our listeners. Help Food Radio continue in the future and help us raise enough funds for the year to come. Go to heritageradionetwork.org/donate today. And since you've got such good taste, we have some very cool member gifts for you to choose from. Thanks for listening and for being a part of the HRN community.
We're back. This is Lisa Held. You're listening to the Farm Report. And I've been talking to Chris D'Amico, the owner of Farmed in Atlanta, Georgia. So before the break, Chris, we were talking a lot about the logistics of how Farmed works. And you started to talk a little bit about how more people are interested in local food and the benefits of local. I want to dig a little bit into that. So what is the messaging that you use most often to talk about the value of local?
Well, really, three things. Direct, buying anything direct. You know what you're getting. So getting food direct from farmers, speaks for itself, especially when you're dealing with food. Transparency, I think, is the other big piece. No warehouses means you get local food faster, fresher, safer, and you know where it's coming from. So that transparency is, I think, really key, especially as, restaurants want to market that back to their end customers. And I think the other piece is really just the equitable nature of supporting local farmers and local businesses, especially in the food community. That's really important. So those are the three things that we focus on mostly, and our mission is really to connect local food and community, or reconnect local food and community, and to create that transparent, sustainable, and more equitable food system.
Right. And what about if people are interested in what is actually happening on the local farm? So, for instance, if they're interested in they want to only buy food for the restaurant that's organic, or, you know, they want to know about the practices the farmers are using, if they're building soil health, you know, things like that. Do you facilitate relationships where they can learn more about the individual farms and their actual practices as well?
Absolutely. And so, you know, again, we like to say we don't sell food, farmers do. So, you know, the farmers are able to build a profile to tell their story, and share what their farming practices are, you know, how they see the world of farming and what their unique, you know, methods and techniques are. But more importantly, they are also able to post their certificates, their Primus audits, their GAP certifications, their organic certifications. So, you know, your chefs can come on and see that information, learn about the farm, learn about the folks, you know, behind the farm, and then also see, you know, the different certifications and things that, you know, they've worked hard on to establish, you know, to better communicate the value that, you know, their food over maybe somebody else's food. So, yeah, that's really, I think the key to it is, you know, giving farmers the ability to kind of take back control of their brand, as opposed to that getting lost in the shuffle through all the middlemen, who aren't going to be able to represent that farm's uniqueness or value-added proposition the way the actual farm can.
Right. And, you know, talking about the representation of farmers, that also makes me think about this thing that happens really often, which is that people say they're sourcing local and they're not, right? I mean,
we see it all the time.
Right? I mean, there's, you know, I hear from farmers that I talk to, you know, they'll say, oh, someone bought, you know, a crate of you know, greens from me once, and then I went back to that store 3 years later and there's a picture of me on the wall. And it's like, what? You know? So, I mean, all of this, like what you're doing costs more, you know, it's hard to make these things work economically. How do you deal with that? You know, sort of like there's no regulation in terms of like what you can and can't say when it comes to like sourcing locally.
Well, there's kind of a couple things. I think, you know, on the chef side, the desire is there. It just comes down to, you know, reliability and availability. And a lot of times, you know, sourcing local currently without a farm and helping coordinate it all, it's not reliable and it's not, you know, always available. So it becomes hard for them to work that into their menus and their food program. You know, one of the things that we're doing is, and you can see on our website, farm.com/certified. So we have a farm certified program where, you know, restaurants can sign up to be certified, and then we work with them, you know, to help them market that back to their customers. You know, it's an annual thing, so you have to, you know, you can't come into the platform and, you know, just get farm certified. We've got to come talk to you. We're going to look at, you know, how much you're buying and, you know, are you really committed to that? Doesn't mean that they're going to, you know, buy all their supply from farm, obviously, right? You know, we don't sell canned tomatoes and, you know, paper goods, things like that, like a typical broadliner would. But we can help them market that back to their customers through a farm certified program if you know, that's what they really want to hang their hat on. And you know, that's something that we're working with a lot of restaurants here in Atlanta on, and seems to be well received in the market, as well as the consumers that are coming to those establishments that get to now go and see what that means. We lay that out on our website. So yeah, I mean, again, it's an part education,
right,
for the consumer, but more importantly, you know, it's being able to provide a scalable, reliable, flexible system for these food service establishments to do this, you know, at scale. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's really interesting that you say that there's plenty of demand from chefs. I mean, I see that I guess sometimes, but then it also is really surprising to me how few chefs are sourcing locally. And I mean, I guess part of what you're saying is, because it's hard and there are all these barriers which you're trying to address. Do you ever get pushback from chefs just on cost? Like, people who say, well, I would source locally, but it's just too expensive. Like Sysco's always going to be cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one of the big problems, right? Is like, why would local be more expensive? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, but that is kind of the thought is like, well, local is more expensive, but it's like, well, why is that, right? It's the food that's closest to me. It should be cheaper. So by creating, leveraging technology the way we are, our food is not more expensive. In a lot of cases, it's less expensive.
Huh.
Because our overhead model and asset light model, we're able to return the margin back to not only the farmer but as well as the buyer. So we have a lot of SKUs that are in some cases the cheapest you can get in the market. And by the way, it's local, coming right from a farm. So creating that value proposition is hard to pass up, but that was the goal. Like local has to be easily accessible, and I shouldn't be paying more for it. If anything, it should be cheaper.
Yeah.
And getting more value for the food that I'm buying. So that's really our take on the market and what we're approving. Over the last 23 months.
Yeah, that's incredible. It seems like if you can do that, that's sort of the
that's the key.
Yeah, exactly. So what is next in terms of the future? Are you trying to just grow in terms of, serving more restaurants, bringing on more farmers, or is the idea to eventually expand to other regions and replicate the model in other places?
Yes. Yeah. So we have an expansion plan that we will start, late 2020. We're really focused on building out, taking all of everything we've learned in the last 23 months. We're building our playbook here in Metro Atlanta. So we will continue to penetrate this market, get the unit economics even better. And then, we are getting ready to raise our next round of funding. And then we will start, kind of the second phase of this will be, really before we truly scale. But yes, that is a goal of ours. We have 60 cities that we want to be in the next 5 years and, fill that niche that's not being filled, which is, local food at scale, in a reliable and more, flexible way than it currently exists.
Right. And would you expand outside of restaurants? Could this model apply to, for instance, you mentioned grocery stores don't have, nearly as much local food as one would expect. Would this apply, or do you think, it's a model that is specifically designed for restaurants?
We're focused on the restaurant community right now, specifically the chef community, because we feel they're, the tip of the spear. They really lead the way in food trends and, what we would consider innovators in food space. But I will say that, we do have half a dozen grocery stores, mostly independent, that are on the platform. And we do plan to really address that part of the market after we finish this next round of funding. And the retail folks, it's a little bit of a different problem, little different challenges, but nonetheless, the grocery stores are in the same boat, right? They want to be able to source local food by store, and where you would walk into the grocery store and you'd have a section of 10 or 12 different farms that are within a couple hours of that grocery store. Mm-hmm. And being able to do that at scale across, 10 or 20 grocery store units in the metro area is, back to the whole volume game, right? It's hard for them too. Mm-hmm. So that is a big part of our roadmap. And, I see a huge opportunity in that space just as well as food service, because again, they're both in the same boat. they want it. The demand's there. It's the service and the supply, has to kind of be matched, right?
Right.
So you've got to build that out. It takes time, and this is an infrastructure play first, not a demand first play. And you have to get the infrastructure and the monetization correct first before you can really create the demand or go after the demand. But the demand is obviously there, and learning all of those lessons takes time, and building that playbook. We want to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. Excited to see what's in store in the future for Farmed.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and obviously we appreciate what y'all do. And anytime you want to update, just let me know, and we'll keep listening. And everybody, happy holidays.
Great. Thank you all so much for listening to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and share it. I'll see you in January.
This program is powered by Simplecast.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.